some comfort today, but now China has to walk the talk.
That's right. And I think, if you look at the details of what the PBOC said they're actually going to do today, there's very limited amounts of, stimulus or extra action that they're actually going to take. There's a 100 billion yuan or $15 billion increase in the relending quota for production and storage of coal. There's also some support for the aviation sector. But, this seems to be another one in what's been a series of very small announcements by the central government and by the central bank, which have been taken as good signs by markets. But then, when nothing else is eventuated from that, markets have tended to be disappointed. So, I guess we'll have to see whether this rally that we're seeing now in the stock market lasts. But, so far the PBOC hasn't announced anything substantial that would really turn around the current economic downturn.
And James, tell us what it's like being in Beijing right now. It seems like they're expanding the mass testing beyond just Chaoyang, which is a key area for a lot of expats as well. There's a lot of concern of whether Beijing can actually avoid a Shanghai-style crisis. How are you seeing things?
Yeah, so the vast majority of Beijing is having to do 3 tests this week. And the vast majority of people who live in Beijing are now having to do 3 tests, except for people who live out near the Great Wall. And I think there was a lot of panic yesterday on Sunday night. People went shopping or bought a lot of food. But I guess the hope is that Beijing can do what other cities in China have done, like Shenzhen, like Nanjing, and have these series of repeated mass testing and targeted lockdowns, but not have to go the full lockdown like in Jilin or in Changchun or in Shanghai. Both of those are possibilities right now, and it just depends, I guess, on how many cases of COVID the government finds through this week or the next couple of weeks of mass testing. Both of those are possibilities. There are many cities in China that have had outbreaks in the last, say, 6 months and haven't had the lockdown. And there's been a few cases, as we know, in Shanghai and elsewhere where they have had the lockdown. So, people are very worried, and obviously they're going shopping, but, I don't think there's panic on the streets.
James, all of that playing out in the strength of the yuan, well, some strength today, given the weakness that we've seen so far, it comes down to the PBOC fix. I mean, how are you reading that? How much appetite is there for further weakness for the currency?
So the central bank announced last night that the banks would have to keep less money in reserve for their foreign exchange holdings, and then the fix today as well. I think it's those two things combined that have been taken as a signal by them, by the currency markets that the PBOC has had enough with the weakening yuan. Whether that will be enough to stop the drop in the value of the currency, considering that China is still adding stimulus, and countries like the Fed and other countries are cutting back on stimulus, and so you're seeing the changing rate differential. It's not clear, but at least at this point, the market is seeing the central bank is saying this is where we want it to be, or we don't want it to weaken so quickly and so much. So this is being taken as a line by the central bank. Whether that's enough, as I said, to stem that fall in the currency, which is driven by factors outside the central bank's control, I guess remains to be seen.